Okay. Actually helps if I remember to hit the begin. Oh, I don't want to do this monitor. Okay. So, I think okay. So, hmm, I agree with that one. So the other day, I did some changes after stream to adopt the CAS, the compare and swap that Trap suggested. Um, After looking at things that both Trap and Apex were kind of suggesting to me, and I'm thankful for the education, and I understood after doing a bit more reading how to implement the CAS, which is really a version check before we go save it back to the database. So the thing we pulled out and changed, when we go to save it again, is it different than what we actually did? And if it is, let's get out of here, let's go back and try again, right? So I get that concept. However, my experience being what it is, I wasn't totally happy at just trusting that. And I know the sagas are taking me a long time. I know that I've gone back and forth, and I know that I've added more and more. And these might not be quite as engaging as the rest of the Liquid Sky content could be. But this is a really foundational component that if I don't get it right, um, I will end up with quite the mess. Sorry. So, nice. The only chat I get is spam. Um, Sorry. Still recovering from whatever I've had. So yeah, my experience of working with SQL Server at least has been, you might think two writes can't happen to the database at once. But I've actually seen uh, um, collisions happen. I've actually witnessed but if the read lock would pause it, I think we're going to be okay here. I think this solution will work well enough for now, and I think we'll be able to discover any problems later. I'm looking at the basically the suggestions would to take this further would be to implement the cast piece at the storage level. So but I think we're going to move on. Yeah, I think we'll move on. Yeah. Okay. Because this is agnostic of the storage right this second. It is a choice to try and make them work the same. I don't want to start creating SQL and Mongo differences at this point. I think it's being handled in a not too dissimilar way in some of the suggestions. So let's go with that for now. I think it works. So I need to write some tests. I need to validate that this is going to function. So what is the difference between this and something else? Well, I need to put the saga in the database in the data storage. So private read only, I read only, I saga persistence equals substitute for saga persistence. What we're doing. I don't want to do that. I want to do that. How do I write unit tests? Badly. I'm using the underscores. Okay. That's fine. Subject. And then persistence equals persistence dot fetch saga icon orchestration. Hey Delta. I was streaming. I was late starting because I had to let the dogs out and stuff. So, but I put the notification in Discord a few minutes ago. I will say after seeing a lot of mods versus integration tests, I think I like integration more. More than Apex. I mean, honestly, I like having all of them available, right? I like having integration takes a lot longer to set up. You see, one of the other, I'm tired and my throat is still bad, so I'm not exactly wide awake right now. So I apologize. Yeah, it's taking it out of me. Yeah. So I'm not quite like locked into what I need to do because I slept in because the dogs were actual nightmares last night. um, um, Does that work? Hmm. I'll have to see my brother this weekend if I can. It's always good to see family. Always good to see family. I wish that was as easy for me. Um, this is interesting. So his wife seems to avoid our family. Some people just don't uh, mesh as well as they might, and if it's a family, that's not a good situation. Um, so what I need to do is I need to validate that the first time I call the saga, or the first time I retrieve the saga. Um, okay, let me introduce how it was done. So I created a base class to inherit from for these. So these are a little smaller now, and ultimately all they do is handle the notification, right? What do they do with the notification is the distinct difference. Like, does it create the saga or does it? Yeah. So we return. It's a bit of a messy thing because handle notification retrieves the saga that we retrieved it with. So I'm not quite on board with that design. It's doing too much. But for right now, it means the code is readable. Yeah, it feels normal. How are you doing? So for right now, I'm going to leave it like that. Um, see, it doesn't. This does not read right. This does something and returns something and has a side effect, right? So it's not ideal. Um, oh, well, good to hear it's better, or a little better. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and handle the notification, and then if the saga is complete, then we continue on like this. We finish it out, um, and then we try and update it. And if this isn't successful, we increment a counter and try again. Right. And one day I participated in a shade of real time coding jam. That was fun. Oh, nice, nice. Huh. Yeah, I'm not at this point. I am not a fan of participating in jams. Um, well, work based ones for certain. I will not participate in a work one. Um, I I don't want to put that much extra energy into it. Um, for work jams, I don't think that it's a um, a great use of time, even if it's done in work. I think it's it's just a distraction for work, which I don't need. Also, if um, um, it depends on the organization you're in, I suppose, um, and what the goal of the jam is, I suppose. Um, Most jams are built to try and inspire new product ideas, and I feel that that's not really what developers are there for. and it oftentimes creates yet another thing to maintain. Even with 14 projects with a lot of variety, I'd be surprised if we go ahead with even one of them. Yeah, I don't know. So initially I wrote that, this is bugging me now. Initially I wrote this as fetch, saga, and handle notification, but the behaviors seem to be wrapped up. The saga is the result of the notification being handled properly, or not needing to be done. That pattern feels horrible. Let's go ahead and get it tested, because the behavior will be the same, and refactoring this will make it easier. So with the tests will make it easier for certain, to make sure I don't break any behavior in there. So this is a bit of a messy test to write, because what I need to do is validate that when I retrieve the saga, it's on oh, this is in my subject is not that is sample saga, sample notification handler. That's my actual subject. And this needs mediator and persistence. So that takes mediator and persistence, yeah. Because the generated handler is what I'm testing in here to validate that it behaves exactly as it should, right? So I'm validating this behavior plus the actual handle notification piece itself. So this one is sample saga, handle sample notification. In this case, I'm testing this behavior. This is actually an invalid saga because nothing starts it, which means nothing will ever create it. So, not the best idea for a test, by the way, to write something that is not valid. Some of my friends are getting the Figma IPO. Nice. Nice. So bad. Okay. So when I retrieve the saga, or after I've retrieved the saga, I need to Hey Dan. Hey Rambling Geek. Good morning. Hope you are well. Hope your day is starting well. Both of you. I am still stuck on this challenge of this code design. And I really am trying to make sure that it is going to do what I need it to do. At the same time, I'm also trying to make sure that I contemplate what other options I have in terms of my application design, right? Because the accusation of over engineering being leveled, right, is a challenging one, and over engineering, I think, is one that has different perspectives. If someone can come along and say, "Oh, actually, here's a better pattern," right, and it's far simpler and it solves all the right problems, then yeah, my solution was over engineered. I could try, but doing it now is more fun. Morning, Stony. Oh, good afternoon, Stony. Um, um, thank 5 more days theme pass. I so tried already. I'm so tired. Yeah, having fun, but it's hard. Yeah, yeah, I bet. But the experience. Um, I don't know what over engineer really means. Like I'm building a shell script that kind of does renovate what renovate bot does. So if anything is under engineered, it's under engineered, but it's probably in the wrong direction of engineered amount. Um, Sometimes I think, over engineered is easy if people have a simpler solution. If you are overthinking the problem, um, and don't see it, I don't think that necessarily is over engineering, more just missed sight. And having this is why rubber ducking or having other colleagues or teammates that understand what you're doing helps, because they might be able to say, well, why don't we do it this way? And you can validate your reasoning for some of these things. I don't think I don't think I'm over engineering this. I think that what I'm doing is correct for the challenge I'm trying to solve. Um, but there might be other patterns that I don't know about, right? So to me, that is not over engineering. It's just um, um, discovery and growth. Because on the end of this, if I use the sagas or not, I will understand a better path. But for right now, I don't see anything other than the sagas that is going to get me out of get me past the challenge of coordinating these things. But it's something that I am very mindful of, the amount of effort and the amount of code that's just in this library so far to achieve this, and the amount of code that it's going to create on this side of the house is it's this is the sort of stuff that introduces the real behavior into Liquid Sky, right? The actual challenging, useful stuff, right? But anyway, what I need this to do is, so when I go to update if version matches, by the way, what this actually does is goes and retrieves the record again from the database, and if it can't get it, it creates it. If it does get it, it checks to see if its version is the same, and if it's not the same, it returns back. And the idea there being, the caller will then retrieve the record again, which will get this version out of the database and update that version. Now, there is another challenge there. In that anything I do in that handler, yeah, anything I do in that handler also has to be able to understand that that's not. So the actions taken in a handler need to be idempotent. Otherwise, that creates another problem. If you increment a value in the handler in the database, you do something crazy there, then it goes to save and something else changed something. Another handler happened and the state is wrong. Then I'm going to call that again. So I need to make sure I haven't tracked that. So it does become a design issue of my sagas, but ultimately I should be using the state of the saga to track most stuff. Yeah. So anyway, so the first time this comes out, so I need to tackle. Yeah. Yeah. So let me do that. We need to tackle this one first. So when we call this, what do we call this with? Arg.any sample saga, arg.any cancellation token, returns false, true. So the first time it'll say false. The second time it'll say true. Right? Which means that this is going to get called again. So the first time we want to return a saga with, and it actually doesn't matter what we return here. So new sample saga, right? Because the reality is we will return, we will call it the second time. So this is persistence dot fetch but received twice sample saga arg dot is orchestration identifier any cancellation token. So that should validate that. Now, can I test that? Because I'm validating that I retrieved the saga twice. Can I validate? Well, let's validate that case first. Let's not run too far ahead. Type of or namespace definition or end of file expected. Is that in the source generators? They shouldn't be there. Oh, hold on. Why do you have one too many? Saga I. Yep, I do. Got me some code formatting problems. There we go. That should be better. Okay, that should be healthier. There we go. Okay. Let's run those tests. Oh no. Expected to receive yeah. Derp. You know what? You know what really helps if you actually do something to invoke that. So we need to do subject.handle new sample notification. Object reference. What? Oh, yeah. That's a bad design, isn't it? This has a potential to return null. In this case, it's exactly what it should do. Hold on now. Let me just contemplate that one. If the saga is null, the handler shouldn't do anything. Is that correct? I mean, yeah, it's not set up to handle this message. It hasn't been created yet, so nothing's started it. So if I receive the notification, right? If I receive the notification and the saga hasn't been started, this just ignores it. That's got to be the case because it can't just handle the event. If that's an out of sequence problem, that's it. If saga is no, it's not coded correctly. Well, no, if it's no in this case, it's basically, well, if the saga was started by a certain event and the another event that the saga could handle when it was active occurred, nothing should happen because the saga's not started, right? The event that actually triggers the saga to begin has not started. So if I have in the notifications case, if let's say that the details only matter if the notification has occurred, right? So if the notification says, yep, start tracking this, then any details that come in before this has occurred, I don't need to deal with. I can't handle because I don't know what I'm handling. So I need to start with this. You see, these both start this one in this case, but this one starts it, then these can happen. But if this hasn't occurred yet, then I just ignore this message. I shouldn't be dealing with it. So yeah, that's why we would do that. Yeah, yeah. I would potentially notify that it's occurred. The one problem I have with this entire thing is there's a lot to try and stuff into my head as far as behavior and all the different permutations of what can happen when it can happen. And it's kind of why the saga exists, right? The saga is that coordinating event handler. So, well, no, you wouldn't, because there's a realistic case where, you know, events only matter to you if you are started. So yeah, it's realistic. What I'm thinking though is I'm about to write the almost exact same logic as I have here. Well, I'm going to write the same logic, right? If saga is no, that's a good point. That can be null. Yeah. So you don't want to throw errors. You don't want to deal with yeah, that's funny. Like when it comes time to it, adding the layer of tracing on top of this will be very important, right? Adding that tracing ability into this is going to be a key aspect of making sagas usable. We'll see. So this is because the saga doesn't exist, right? So it doesn't matter if I do that because it's not going to work. Serdev, hello. How's things? So this is actually occurring because of that, I believe. Um, Not being the best design. Handler was called. Notification was. I'm just trapping what the actual thing was. This doesn't do very much, so it's fine. That's by intent. Have I broken the other behaviors by doing this? I think I might have done. No. Only this one. So this should fire this. Can I debug this? No. Boo. Boo. It's an orchestrated notification, right? Yeah, it is an orchestrated notification. It should fetch it. Oh, I'm an idiot. Forget how my own code works. So this sample notification, yeah, its orchestration identifier is the my usable identifier, right? So there's no I didn't have an orchestration identifier. There we go. So we definitely retrieve it twice, which means that this got respected. So where we return false, we do call it twice. What else do I want to know there? What else can I tell from that? Um, right? So we do have three attempts. Um, um, as long as this goes through, that's fine. Otherwise, it will just bail on that request. Now, that's a case where we have a problem, right, Dota? In terms of logging, that's going to be necessary, but there's not much I can do. If the persistence doesn't let you, yeah. Well, in this instance, knowing that the event that was triggered failed to persist changes to the state, it could be tragic, it could be catastrophic. So ultimately, that's going to be necessary. But the system can't fall over. That's an important piece there. So I don't want to throw an exception right now. Again, I've got to. This is something I understood the elements of before going into this task, but I think that building it and using it will give me an education and allow me to understand a lot more. I was just using the levels to think about how the behaviors should be handled. Yeah. Okay. So let's. Why do I have? Yeah. If you are new to the stream, if you are just joining, what I am working on is trying to get a saga library. Logging is super important. Traces to more information from your system is always better until the costs of it start like getting you now. Nareth, good morning. Yeah, no dispute there. I am also highly aware of noise, so I do not want to put in a load of logging and tracing. Oh, logging, tracing, I can do at a different level, but logging and stuff is not something I'm a big fan of. Just dumping through my code. I think I want to be more. Like, to me, logging should be planned. Like, what will this tell us when this thing occurs? Like, how do we want to know this thing? Because I've seen so much debug logging, logging used for debugging issues over the years that it just invariably makes noise. So we will do another pass of this. But yeah, if you're just joining, you are more than welcome to ask any questions. If you have thoughts or opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to share. I am open to learning and growing, as long as the conversation is productive and not just you're doing it wrong, or that's terrible, you shouldn't do that. All right, my experience is my experience. My approach is my approach. So why are you complaining? Yes, fine. But now you're going to error because it's not. Yeah. So, okay, you can have that. Just don't like the yellow squiggly, that's all. So in the scenario where this doesn't actually do anything, if the attempts run out, then nothing's going to happen. So I don't feel I need to explicitly test that piece. We test publishing here. This is all the same code that's being tested by these methods. we test a retry. Um, like again, this is returning this every time. Um, the saga itself, the base saga that this is based on, has the version, right? So that's what's tracked there. That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to think about, right? What the there's a certain number of attempts. So this was based upon the conversation we had on Wednesday, where Trap and Apex were trying to help me with some conceptual stuff, and Trap brought up CAS, compare and swap, and that's where this comes from. Initially, I was trying to introduce distributed locks, but the distributed locks would have created quite the mess. And I was at that point where I was like, so this definitely fit. I went for a job interview a couple of months ago, and they showed me their login system. It was pretty good, full traces when issues occurred, but very minimal otherwise. Yeah, Datadog is a good platform for tracing and stuff, but you still have to put it into your application, right? No, I'm coming off of something slowly. I've had this congestion for the last week, so I apologize. Um, yeah, so Tracy's you should do some Barry White karaoke. No one needs to hear me sing. Um, um, Tracy's can be handled, differently. But I feel that so we have a maximum number of retries on the save, which should allow us to align pretty quick, right? These are not uh, these transaction these moments against the database should not last for very long, so 3 should be more than enough. If you're locking up your database that heavily, then I probably have, or I'm contending that much, and I probably have written sagas that are way more complicated than I expected. But pardon me. That said, I think it would be useful. So this is a library, right? This is a library, so I cannot be opinionated about how I treat logging necessarily. I really need to do a bit more of a deep dive on tracing. Um, Gonna finish. My daughter sets an alarm for 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why, because she went out onto the couch in the night and sat there. and fell asleep there. Morning, Mr. Anhorn. How are you doing? So the alarm is just driving me crazy behind me. Um, nah. Kind of depends on it if there's just done a new ecosystem for logging and if your aggregator system plugs into it or not. Well, that's what I'm like again, I think that is something that I want to do a pass of as far as the design goes, because then I can make it. Yeah, I'm using Hotel. Hotel, well, not for this particular piece doesn't have Hotel in it, but Hotel at the larger system, yeah. Asking questions about working in a legacy code base. That's not good. Shouldn't pretend to have answers. You don't have to be an expert. No, not yet. I haven't. So right now, I'm basically using Hotel and because everything in Liquid Sky starts up inside of Aspire. Aspire gives all that stuff, right? So yeah. Um, has moved our new relic to a hotel, exporting to our own hosted Grafana, Thanos, Pharaoh, Ally, Prometheus. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's why I am paying close attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it. If you haven't been there before, by the way, so Melon created a framework for creating distributed systems, and he has been streaming some of showing what happened when he produced a system and adding in the functionality for that. And he's using Ruby, but I would highly recommend checking out his stream. Meredith is an experienced developer with a lot of good ideas and writes some. I like seeing Ruby, to be honest. I kind of enjoy seeing the Ruby stuff. I do check now because I realized I didn't. I missed your stream a few times, and I checked to see around the afternoon, like, are you streaming? Um, I was going to say it was a K a month. Well, it's going to save you 1K a month against like a third party, but what's that going to cost in terms of maintenance of those tools over time? Right. I don't think it's going to cost you a K a month, but if you have someone having to fix things or bug fix things or deploy new versions, and hopefully that, that's where it can become challenging, right? Self-hosting anything is I feel that is oftentimes a lost cost that people think is free because you're already paying the people to look after it. I've not been good at my consistency. I'm going to cut back the hours, and yeah, long streams are good for discovery, but long streams are hard on energy. uh, so more shorter streams you'll probably do better with. I'm at one request in producing 6.4K span. Jeez. That's insane. But yeah, so in Liquid Sky, I do have open telemetry stuff. It's using the Aspire dashboard right now. I'm not doing anything more. Again, I feel that entire thing, logging, tracing, etc., is more of a, I'll say, tactical choice. It should be designed and shouldn't just be jammed in there. So I will do a pass of improved logging and telemetry. My general attitude is throw exceptions where needed and don't catch exceptions where you don't understand. So, um, yeah, of course, we will see. We technically already had all of this in cluster and pushed out to New Relic. Yeah. Yeah, I get that costs are climbing on the cloud, cloud in general, but the cloud uh, providers like that. But I always fear hosting, you know, X product is always a risk from a productivity standpoint, right? Because you could get drawn into uh, something that's not actually your core your core behavior. Anyway, what I was going to do here is I was going to create a um, nice. That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, maybe we can do a series of streams on getting those sorts of things included and how it matters to Liquid Sky. One of the dreams I have would be to be able to see this request produced this change in these areas. That would be very cool. Um, what is this? This is a let's go with Saga update failed section. Yeah. Um, I call Sagas to your platform, but all these returns with no indication. That's what I'm saying. I'm not. This is not the end. This is the beginning, right? This is the. So the returns are because I can't do anything with this data, right? There's nothing to do. There's no value. It has nothing. So again, I'm not a fan of writing log. You know, there. I don't like that, right? Um, yeah. So yeah. I am fully aware of, you know, there are areas of this that I am going to need to change and improve later on. Sagas is a library that will plug into my main system and we will refine and tidy up as we go, right? Um, yeah. However, in this case, um, no, 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 no. Mm, let's not overthink it. Um, if you don't like logs, you could use activity context to track major events. Those can then be picked up by OTel in the future. Yes. No, not that one. Not the one I'm thinking of. I did start using activity context stuff the other week. I started putting a piece in to test some stuff. Um, yeah. basically for right now, if this occurs, that should be enough to tell me that it is occurring and that there is more to do on that specific piece sooner. Um, the other option there is those don't become returns, those become breaks. But yeah, that's just a. But now that is incorrect. Um, uh, how could you good at ephemeral queues too? AWS Star, SNS, SQS did good for me. Yeah. Uh, yeah. It's funny. I was just the other day educated on SNS to SQS as a kind of fan out pattern. Um, I did not uh, um, realize that's how it was done. Um, so with Kafka, you basically set your attention policies. So if you need, I suppose I haven't used it in that pattern. Um, because Kafka is really built for distribution of the data, right? So you have a topic, it produces messages. You have X number of consumers. Um, those consumers should have access to that. So a lot of people start using Kafka as a database almost. Um, so the other option, the the hey, I've got this, it's done, I've finished. Um, I don't think is necessarily something I've looked at. Um, like again, SQS, you read the message, you delete the message, right? From the queue, and that's how it works. Um, I don't know if yeah, if you need delete and receive semantics, Kafka streams. Yeah, so no, I would say I would having just looked that up a little bit more. I would say that Kafka does not do ephemeral without some significant extension. Um, Also, this could get a piece of the account set up. Yeah, I mean it. You don't lose the event. So the one benefit is you get replay. So you can just reset your consumers and they'll start the messages again. So if you've produced the events once, you don't need to run that process again. That is a benefit. So in that case, what I would do is I would produce my users to a Kafka topic, and then any systems that needed those users could read those messages. And if I was rebuilding one of them, being that those messages were all there, especially in dev environment, I would just reset the offset on their topics, on the consumer offsets, and it'd replay all the messages back again. So yeah, but it doesn't deal well with that ephemeral stuff because it's built for retention. Again, Kafka was built for distributing logs around a system, right? So it's yeah, and I find that's one of the things that's difficult when you when you go in between these different technologies that are the same but different, right? They solve the problems you need, or you solve your problems using the tools in very different ways. And I think that's where I don't like, Kafka as a service bus. I know it can be used as one, but it requires like really. So probably my phone went to sleep. Okay. Yeah, Kafka as a service bus is one I don't like because it requires that you basically create, you decorate your messages or you set topics up to represent specific actions, etc. And I think that seems reasonable, but then the purpose of topics is to be partitioned, etc. So if you do it that way, then you could potentially get updates coming out of sequence because, well, no, you shouldn't do if you have the key, but it's more design to use it as a service bus. So I'm just putting in a test to validate that logic that I just wrote is actually valid. When Saga fails to update, Saga updated, Saga update failed, exception is thrown. This is going to be one of those tests that I have a range actor cert all in the same thing because I don't have an option. Well, but multiple consumers in Kafka will get partition, right? So they might run out of order with each other. A partition is data partitioning, not consumer partitioning. So a partition, as far as I understand it, is you are guaranteed to be put in the same partition if you have the same key, right? So Kafka will allocate you to a partition based upon the key, and it will guarantee that all events that happen for a single key will come in the same partition. Consumers consuming those topics will round robin the partitions. So you could have that if the keys were vastly different. So again, it's more, you have to be careful of a design, right? If I'm like in Liquid Sky, everything has this orchestration, this identifier, this orchestration identifier essentially is the ID of the entity itself. So I create a unique ID for every object, and that object, if you look at planning item in Vue versus planning item in planning of planning iteming changes, which is tracked there for change tracking. The IDs will be different, but the identifiers will be the same. And that's what I use as my key for Kafka, so that they will always go in the same partition, which means I'll get updates to that same thing in chronological order. I might not process other events around them or other objects in the same way. So if a planning item has a dependency on another planning item, I might process those events out of sequence because of the consumers. Yeah. Because I'm doing a arrange assert act. Yeah, I'm gonna cover it. I need to do this slightly differently. So my arrange act stuff doesn't work if this is the way I'm doing it. We still need to set these up. This is where having sorry, having a configurable limit on this would be good, because realistically I've got to do false, false, false. Right. We need to build our subject. Don't know why I'm being so lazy. I could have typed that. And now when we act subject.handle new sample notification, my usable identifier equals orchestration identifier. This is kind of no, you can do that on any, you don't need that. So assert throws, yeah. This is going to be messy. Is that an await, or is that an actual? Func task. Yeah, okay. So that's a... Stop helping me. What do you like? Return. Ah. That uses value, task, that uses task. The robot's still best. I hate when AI intelligence gets out. It just fills in things that it really shouldn't. Um, Actually, I think JetBrains IntelliSense, as much as I love Ryder, JetBrains IntelliSense is getting a little, like, just the default one is getting a little bit too um uh off the mark. Yeah. What was I gonna look for? Sorry. Okay, so this should be that, right? Ah, okay. There you go. And then I just do throws async. That one makes sense, but that isn't how it works. That's how it works. There you go. So we're validating that when we handle this particular thing, it will try to save, but we've told it will return false every single time it tries to update. Therefore, we should throw the exception. And it wants to move that declaration closer. That's fine. Still in the range. Okay. Do you pass? Okay, so do the rest of them work? Well, let's tackle these. Mm-hmm. So if it fails, so attempt 0, 3. It should be equal to maximum retries, right? That's the, well, it's less than, yeah, because when it's equal to 3, this is no longer true, therefore that should come out. So it should always be equals. Why I think it was going to increment it past it. So we're throwing this exception in these tests. Now, this may seem like an awful lot of work that takes me away from Liquid Sky, but if I can get this tuned in and I can get this working correctly, it will give me a good set of tools to build functionality into Liquid Sky. And again, this is not a distributed saga that I'm working on. A distributed across the entire system saga that I'm working on. If I'm doing those sagas, I'm using mass transit, right? If I need actual sagas at the many events from across the system, but we're not at that point yet. This library is built, or is being built, to help me coordinate messages coming into a single component of the system across many services. It's winning time. Hi, Mojo. How you doing? So it threw the exception. So that suggests this is a data problem more than anything else. Let's do jacked base. Okay, so we have made no changes to the actual code, so this should still fail. Right. Let's set this up. So what we're trying to do here is track that we've captured the saga. Persistence dot update version of matches arg.any saga arg.any cancellation token returns true. There you go. There you go, it's helping me now. Let's just run that and then we'll see. That can't be read only. That can be that. 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 Let's do arrange act base. Oh, that's a new thing. That's interesting. It is a task. Um, yeah, I got any cancellation token. We remove them. Clean that up. Yesterday I found out that I could group all the input parameters to an action method into a single class. What, creating a parameter object? um, okay. You thought that you had to have all the parameters separate, whereas it will bind to an object. You didn't know that, but he did. Yeah, because it'll bind. Yeah. Oh dear. Yes. Yes. We now have updated version matches. It's not the final version. It's a version. I still think that I probably need to put it at the persistence layer rather than the actual saga layer. But I think based upon um, the way I'll be using this right now, I think it's going to do enough. Yeah, I did a little bit more reading after stream, and I appreciate the assistance, both from you and from Apex the other day. It was good to get the added education there. So this is doing the CAS stuff. Good morning. Um, so it's a simplistic implementation right now, but it does pull the saga out, and then when it goes to put it back, it checks to see if its version matches, and if it doesn't, it returns false and then does its update again. So we're gonna give that a go and test that, and I think it will solve for the problem right this second. So I greatly appreciate the education the other day. I still think I have another issue to solve. Beyond this, oh, man, I'm not winning on these things, am I? That's why unit tests are helpful, though, and integration tests, which is what these are. Okay, you're gonna fail because Docker isn't running. That's a whole different problem. How did you work? Oh, because you don't use Docker. You don't use, yeah, okay. my machine powered off the other day. Hard. That's good. Can I put in, actually, while I'm thinking about that, can I put in... Can you put in push checks? Oh. Can I run all the unit tests? That'd be kind of cool. I was thinking about that. I was doing that then. Like, either a checklist to make me validate that I've run the tests, or something to help me drive that improvement to myself. Okay, so not the most comprehensive, but we do now have an update if version matches. Is it ideal? No. Is it going to work? Yes, I think it will. For right this second. Again, it does rely upon the fact that if I have if I'm changing the saga, changing things in the handle of these sagas, that I am doing so idempotently. So it could trip me up, but we will only do this by learning. This is why Liquid Sky is perfect for this, because I can learn some lessons without actually costing me or anybody else anything. Whoa, that's a lot of changes. Let's do this logically. There's no logical here. Let's just commit this. Let's see what it thinks. Commit and push. Distributed locks sagas became CAS, not distributed locks. And also we introduced the generators being packed, because that's going to be useful. So I did look deeper, and again, using the persistence technology's ability to deal with CAS. Mongo seems to be a little bit more like pretty much on the money for the same implementation. SQL Server does have some abilities there, but being that I don't know when I'm going to be using what here, I'm not going to panic too much about that at this point. We can learn as we go. Primarily because to get this implemented at the SQL Server layer, would involve a little bit more mess. I'm kind of just reviewing what I saw the other day. You can use row version in SQL Server, but it means handwriting the sequel, getting away from entity framework. So I have to think more about that one later. But I think this should handle it for now. So let's get that pushed. Then this still does not tackle, by the way, my service distribution part. This tackles the events being, the saga being pulled and persisted from two different services, but it doesn't tackle my who owns the saga to trigger the actual actions on it. I'm still gonna have to figure that out. Feature introduce Cass pop on saga. I'm trying to, by the way, record, when we've had those sorts of conversations, as much as I can, so I can reference it later in terms of who helped me, what we kind of talked about, why it matters. What am I trying to do here? Switched design from test pass. We could fix the other thing. Let's not delete the branch just yet. You never know. 0.0.8. Uh, One Napalm. How you doing? Hmm. So one of the things that got me worried about doing this piece is I have seen events occur in SQL Server that should not occur. So we had an instance of we had a primary key constraint, and we had a unique constraint added for a secondary field. And we would routinely get 2 records with identical keys. So we learned that even a unique constraint can be got around if things happen fast enough, right? So we were the performance of the application we're working on was good enough that it basically, this occurred once to twice a month, where we would have a record appear twice, to the point where my colleague spent many months trying to figure out how you would even solve that problem. So doing this, I considered, that can happen. But the reality is these things will be happening in different processes. With different timings, and the chances of 2 events occurring at the exact same moment, like down to the millisecond moment, and creating a problem here is less likely. So I think this will solve for that, that problem right this second. Again, I still have to figure out ownership of who runs the service that triggers the Sagas behavior, but I haven't got triggers yet, so I don't need to panic about that piece until next week. And that'll be another, how do we solve that problem? Update from events to occurring in a near same time frame. Publish release. UUID what? Both services know about the Sagas because it's in the same. So in this instance, I have 2 services. Well, I'm not depending on timing. I'm trying to figure out how not to do that. So two services where Sagas will be enabled. Those services will be running to. They both need to run to check if Sagas should be triggered. Right? Because if one system's down or one system's not enabled right this second, the other one can still do its job. Depending on. So for the Sagas, for the save of the Saga data that I've just that cast stuff, no, I'm just saying that I have witnessed, and it gave me pause for thought. Right, I have witnessed an impossible, a seemingly impossible behavior, where unique constraints in SQL Server were bypassed. Because 2 things happened at the exact same time, enough that SQL Server saved both records. I've seen it, right? I'm not trying to account for that. I'm based upon what I'm doing now, I have no concern over that being the case. The odds of that happening are very, 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 very tiny. And I wouldn't even see it until this application got to major usage. Is my so I'm not going to worry about that problem right now. I'm not going to over engineer for that problem. But there's two aspects to sagas that are a challenge. That first one I think has been tackled with the help of Trap and Apex in the CAS implementation. Yeah, item potency is going to be that, and that's again, like I said before, when I do the handle now, I have to make sure that I tackle the item potency of that event, because I could handle it, and then it goes to save to the database, and the other sagas managed to beat it. The other service has pulled the saga and handled its event, and then gone and saved it, and this one now goes to save back and says, oh, my version mismatches. Let's go load the saga again and make this request again. I'm going to have to make sure I'm very careful about the item potency of that, because if I make changes to the database in my handle, that could create, a problem. So that's a whole separate piece. In this case, this second case, and I'm talking because I'm waiting for this to go through. I'm going to have two services monitoring the sagas, because I'm going to have both services are going to receive events that the sagas can react with, right? Trigger from. I'm going to have to figure out how to basically, one of these services, it doesn't matter which service necessarily, because they're both in the same module. This is why this particular library is existing, right? They're both in the same module. But only one of them should handle triggering the timed nature of the saga. So like, hey, it needs to execute every week, it needs to execute every minute, it needs to execute every hour, right? Those things should only happen once in this module. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to tackle that problem. But we don't need to do that right now, so that's the problem for next week, or 2 weeks from now, because this is going to take its time. Oh, come on. Am I ever going to win this battle with this one? Oh. Yeah, that's a problem. Let's go back there. Let's go here. Let's delete that. No, we can't delete that tag because we've got to delete the release first, right? Releases. Let's delete that release. Tags. Let's delete that tag. Yeah, that would be a problem. No. I was deving on a branch. I was releasing off main. I don't often deliberately do development off main. Sorry. Oh. It's all good. The release failed with missing files because I named something stupid, so I'm going to fix that now. Roll the dice, work in prod. Uh, Anything can fail on anything. Never underestimate developers. So two things here. A, this library is not named correctly. Everything's called sagas. This is called saga. So we're going to create that. We should rename space things. Let's just make sure. Yep. All right, let's build everything. Right. When I did this, what the hell? Where's my bloody workflow gone? I committed the workflow. Huh. Go workflows, release. There. I don't know like that, does it? Let's check out this one. What? My local changes to these files should not be anything. Okay, roll back. Where did I mess up there? Update. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Did I not? I thought I pulled. I need to create a bunch of gens in my projects, so I stop copying implementations amongst Marielle's projects. It's just a spike level project, but the pain, she's real. Yeah. People like to gamble on vacation, so working in prod main is like a vacation. Yeah. Feature correct workflow. Okay, so again, I followed my own naming pattern, but here I didn't saga generator test saga generators, which is technically correct. They are saga generators. However, we want to rename that. Oh, what did you do to me? Mm. Oh crap! I am not in the. Okay, I'm well over time. I gotta run. So what I will do is over the weekend I will probably work a little bit more on this, trying to get this tidied up and get this implemented in Liquid Sky, so that by Monday we are actually implementing some of these sagas. But I will be back on Monday. Next week is a regular week. I have 5 days. I have no more PT, so that's gone well. And yeah, no breaks for a couple of weeks now. Hopefully, let's not go out. But yeah, we're gonna. He's not gonna like this, but we're gonna go right over to Maybe before he finishes. Maybe he's working on his vibe coded LinkedIn replacement, and yeah, so we're gonna go check that out for a few minutes. He will likely finish soon because he's got work as well. But let's go have some fun. I'll see you later. Have a great weekend. Take care. And don't forget, if you want to chat and hang out, Discord is also there. More than welcome to join. So take care all. Bye.